Today on the Happy House, we're back at Tonkadale Greenhouse to learn just how important pollinator gardens are.
Pollinators are super important. They're important for the biodiversity of our natural habitats, plus they're responsible for the majority of our food sources.
And
we're going back to kindergarten. We're talking with educators on what to expect.
And it's all about mosaics. We're breaking things for the sake of art. Stay tuned. Hi, I'm Happi. I live in a quiet town outside of Minneapolis with my family. The real Happy House is far from quiet. I learned early on things are much easier with a little help. I also have a few tricks of my own to share. It's go time, people. Welcome to the Happy House.
My son Chandler recently introduced me to pollinator plants because he became interested in bees specifically and what they do for our environment. So I'm here with Jesse today at Tonkadale to learn more about what a pollinator plant is. And I understand, Jesse, from a brief conversation we've already had, that it's not just bees that are pollinators.
Correct.
So talk to me about what a pollinator plant is, what it does for our environment, and who exactly are these pollinators?
So pollinators are super important. They're important for the biodiversity of our natural habitats, plus they're responsible for the majority of our food sources. So, you've seen those diagrams on the internet where if pollinators and bees were eliminated, you'd be left with some lettuce and some kale or something, and there'd be nothing left for us to eat.
Like fruits and all of those kinds of things?
Pollinators are responsible for all of that. So we're not just concerned about bees, we're concerned about butterflies, hummingbirds, even bats, beetles, flies, birds, things that help move the pollen around and mix up the genetic diversity.
So that's interesting. They are basically a transport system for our pollen.
You got it. And so a lot of times we focus on kind of these key species like honeybees and monarch butterflies, which is great because paying attention to those two guys helps us to pay attention to everybody. I read a really interesting article about a year or so ago, and the author was challenging everybody to plant 25% of their own yard in garden or plants for pollinators or just something other than grass.
Any kind of garden, can it be like vegetables or anything like that? So that's actually a pretty aggressive goal for me. I am not a great gardener. So how would I get started then if I wanted to plant 25% of my yard? Could I do some containers? What would I do?
I'll let you start with 10%.
Okay, that's a good goal.
Think about when you're driving around, what you see out your window. You see roadways, you see ditches, you see boulevards, you see huge expanses of golf course, parks, etc., all planted to grass. And there's a lot of these areas that could really be, pollinator sanctuaries to help create more food and refuge for these special insects. To start small, if you're going to start small at home, the main idea is to plant clean plants. So you want to plant plants that are free of chemical residues and chemicals that are dangerous to bees and other pollinators. So you want to check with your garden center and see what kinds of things they're using, what's the efficacy of some of the chemicals they're using. Everybody's talking about neonicotinoids right now, so you want to choose your plants from a grower who's neonicotinoid free, etc.
So finding a clean plant first, inquiring if they are friendly towards pollinators.
Correct. And so what we want to do is we want to provide food sources from when winter's over, so when the pollinators, bees, and things start coming out through the end of the season. So actually one of the first food sources for bees is actually dandelions. So letting those go in some areas is a good thing. Letting your grass grow long.
That actually happens at my house.
Then you're on your way.
25%. I'm on the pollinator mission. Yes,
25%. So letting your grass grow longer actually provides some refuge for some of these bees.
And check again.
Check again. Good. There are hundreds of native bees in our state alone. So imagine, just little things can help. So we want to look at bloom time. So when are things that are blooming early in the season, middle of the season, late, and even into the fall. And so I've kind of chosen a wide variety of plants based on flower shape, flower color, and time of bloom. Okay, and these can be either annual plants that you plant every year and die when the first frost comes, or they can be perennials, plants that come back every season.
Okay.
You can also incorporate in some herbs and veggies. Those are great for pollinators too.
Oh, really? That's interesting. So I was thinking mostly when I think of pollen, I think of flowers, which I think a lot of people do. So herbs, veggies, that's all.
Yeah, like your squash and cucumbers, those things gotta crust in order to make fruits. Especially swallowtail butterflies, they love parsley and fennel. So letting those things go to flower is really awesome. This here is a container of all annuals, so things that you would plant every year. And I kind of put them in this galvanized bucket because I thought you could, plop that on your front step and enjoy those blooms all summer long.
This would be easy for someone like me.
Someone who's just starting, or that'd be like a really great gift to someone, and then they could like take it apart and plant those things in the yard. You could bundle up some perennials in it.
I was going to say you could put perennials in here too.
Yeah, like a great gift or a memorial or something. So let's talk about a little bit of flower shape and who's attracted to what.
Okay.
So butterflies love flowers shaped like this. So it's a cluster of flowers kind of in a flat head. What we talk about a lot is milkweed and swamp milkweed. So these are the native nesting plants for monarchs.
Yes.
The monarchs, they come up from Mexico, and live in Minnesota, reproduce, all that life cycle stuff. So we have swamp milkweed and butterfly weed. So these are great for the monarch butterflies. These are pentas. They have that same shaped flower head. This is honeysuckle, and these long tubular flowers are great for hummingbirds. Think about that, the way that they feed. They love catmint, and this would be for smaller bees because these flowers are smaller. So they need somewhere where they can land, open up the flower, and kind of go in. So that'd be something also like, this is Angelonia, which is an annual, or like snapdragons.
What is the easiest way to get started? If I were just wanting to say, again, you've given me the allowance of 10%.
Yes.
Like if I was going to say, hey, I'm going to dedicate 4 containers, what would I plant?
In containers, I would most recommend either doing herbs or annuals. So here with annuals, this is so easy. We have pentas, zinnias. Everybody knows what zinnias are.
Yes.
Salvia up top. I would say those would be kind of the top 3.
The easiest way to get started.
Yeah, easiest way to get started in containers. If you're doing something in the ground, I mean, there's just kind of these quintessential native plants that you think of, especially in the Midwest, echinacea or coneflower. That's kind of for a mid-season.
Jessie, you've given me so much information today. I can't wait to go home and get started with Chandler, but I noticed you have this book here because I'm sure I'm going to forget over half of what you told me. So talk to me about this.
Yeah, so this is Pollinators of Native Plants, and it's about all the pollinators we talked about and specific plants for those pollinators. So this is just a great, simple resource if you want to dig deeper.
It's really in-depth, and you know what? Chandler is sort of a fact collector, so I think he will have a lot of fun reading this, and he will tell me what to do to get started. So this has been so helpful. You have so much information. I would love to learn so much more, but I feel like we've got enough to get started. Chandler and I are going to do some planting, and thank you so much for all your help.
Sure, no problem.
Coming up next on the Happy House, kindergarten is a huge milestone. We're talking with educators on what to expect. Kindergarten is a huge milestone for kids and parents. And I think a lot of us think about what should we do to get our kids ready for kindergarten. So I am here with an expert, a kindergarten teacher, Molly Ortner, and she is going to answer some of these questions for us.
I will try.
So what is the most important thing parents can do to prepare their children for the kindergarten experience?
I think one thing to really remember about kindergarten and just about school in general is we're really thinking about the whole child. And so when you think about getting your child ready, it's not just letters and numbers. It's also how are they doing with being alone without you? When you go on a date night, do they still cry with the babysitter? At preschool, do they still cling to your leg when you leave? Also things in terms of self-help skills. Can they get their jacket on? Can they get their shoes on? Which shoes I know are always tricky, but can they get their shoes on? Can they do snow pants? Things like that, that if you multiplied it by 21, would it be challenging for the teacher to kind of manage that and the other children?
What do I do if I do have a child who is crying and clinging to me? My children never did that. What does that say about me? I don't know. But so what do I do if I have that happening?
If you have that happening, one thing to really consider is your child's birthday. If they are a August birthday and they're doing that, that might be a sign to you that they're just too young for kindergarten, and that's okay. That's okay. One thing that really can happen is you can start with friends in the neighborhood or friends from preschool. If they're going to kindergarten, you might feel like you need to do that because those are your child's friends.
Right.
One of the wonderful things about kindergartners is they make friends fast. And so if that's your concern, that shouldn't be a concern. That will always kind of work itself out. If they are doing that though, and they are an older birthday, giving them as many opportunities to be away from you is great. Doing things like date night, preschool, different types of camps and classes, just giving them more opportunities for you to go away and then to see that you are coming back.
Yes.
Because some parents might go the opposite route of being like, well, they can't handle this, so I can't possibly put them through this, but it's something they need to do. You might feel like it could be traumatic, but it really won't be, because you'll come back every time.
What's the biggest anxiety you see with your students coming in?
I think the biggest thing they worry about is the bathroom and lunch. But other than that, I think it's just the time away can be tricky. It can be hard, and it's a long day, and so they can get really tired. But it normally takes them about a week or two to settle in, and then they're feeling really confident.
Yes.
But I think it's just the time and it's the change. Kindergarten is so fun and it's so magical, but it also then is really stressful. And a lot of kids start thinking about kindergarten when they're 3 or 4 years old. And so then when you actually go, it can be a bit overwhelming. So for some kids, it's just the idea. And then once they're here and settle in and see their name and see that they have a spot and see that what the day is going to feel like, they really can just settle in.
I've been called to the principal's office. I'm going in. I'm just curious, from a principal's perspective, what is the most important thing parents can do to get kiddos ready for kindergarten?
For us, it's all about having a joy of life and a joy of learning and being kind to the people around you. And good things happen when we're kind to each other and when we're good listeners. And when we have empathy, we know what other people feel. We also believe that without play, great learning really doesn't happen. So play in learning, but also play and letting kids have choice.
Okay.
And then they give us their time and energy after we've given them something. So it's very much a reciprocal relationship that we build with kids right from day one.
Do you find that kids have more anxiety coming into school, or is it the parents that have more anxiety about the kids going to school?
Such an easy answer. It's the parents. Kids are kids. They are generally trusting and loving, and if the parent is comfortable, generally the kids are comfortable.
Okay.
So when children have anxiety, honestly, 9 times out of 10, it's the parent who had the first anxiety.
What are the common things you see happening with parents and their anxieties, and what can you say to help people with that?
I think the biggest thing is quick goodbyes, leave dry eyes. A lot of kids and a lot of parents, it's a big deal to have a kindergartner. It's a big deal to have a child who all of a sudden is old enough to be at school. I've had a lot of parents who might start tearing up on the first day, which then all of a sudden the child will go, oh, we're crying. That's what we're doing. I wasn't going to, but now mom is, so I'm gonna cry. Another thing too is parents can get really worried about, they don't know their name, they don't know their letters, they don't know these things, and most kids, when they're ready, it'll click into place. And a lot of times what we do in kindergarten and what we do as educators and parents is kind of set the table for them. It's like we're setting a huge buffet, but they have to be ready to take it in.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so we want to make sure, but we are setting that up and kids learn in their own time.
So what happens over the course of a kindergarten year? I mean, what are we looking at as far as general benchmarks?
I'd say most kids come into kindergarten, they know most of their letters, they know their uppercase letters, lowercase letters are still tricky. Some sounds, they know the letters in their name, they can find their name anywhere. They are able to listen to stories, they're able to engage in the story, they laugh when something's funny. With math and numbers, they're able to count things. They're able to count past about 20, some writing of their numbers and of their names, but a lot of times 5-year-olds, their grip and their pencil grip is kind of funky, and that's okay. We have a unit where we're writing books, and they're kindergarten level books, but they're writing a book and we're laminating the covers, and they're doing that, and by the end of the year, they can read to themselves for 15, 20 minutes. They also can do a lot of things independently, like I can ask them to go to the office, and they can do that.
That's great.
Yeah.
It is magical. That's a huge transformation. You bring in basically a preschooler and take out an elementary age or elementary ready child.
When even their physical transformation, they look so different by the end of the year.
I actually said this before the interview, that this is my dream job, being a kindergarten teacher. Why did you choose to teach kindergarten?
They're just fun and silly and happy, and it's really fun to see what people do when they just do what they want in a happy, sweet way.
That's great.
So, yeah.
Thank you for talking with
You're
us.
welcome.
After these messages, it's all about mosaics. We're breaking things for the sake of art. I've done some very basic mosaic projects with tile and grout, but I wanted to try my hand at something a little different, more freeform, more artistic. So of course, I turned to my friend who is a mad mosaic artist, Remus, and asked her for some assistance. So first of all, I went rogue and I just did this on my own, and I want to know what you think of it.
I say bravo.
Okay.
You did a great job, Happy. I love how you've gotten something you've repurposed.
Yes, I did. I paid like $1 for this at the thrift store.
Right.
Yes.
And so how did you get your form on here?
Well, I know, I did some reading, and I know that you can like do clip art and put that on there, but I thought that would be a little bit too stressful for me to get something perfect off the computer. So I got out one of my favorite tools, a Sharpie.
I love
A
Sharpies.
blue Sharpie, in fact, and drew this anchor.
Love
I
it.
did that, and then I used a variety of glasses. So the thing that wasn't inexpensive about this was the supplies on the inside here, because I did actually go to a mosaic store and purchase these. So I feel like there might be other options to use as materials.
There are. There's so many different options you can use. You can absolutely go to a professional mosaic studio and pick up some glass that you can cut the perfect colors. Otherwise, I would suggest maybe going garage sailing or going to your local thrift store and finding some repurpose items. Okay. Maybe a glass you've broken in the dishwasher, something that, oops, you slipped, and we've had shattered glass. Well, it's not a disaster. We can use it for art. What we're going to need is a towel to lay the plate in, so the shards of glass don't come smacking at us. And yes, I see there's a variety of plates that you've picked up. What do you want to start with?
I kind of like the variation on this plate, so let's see what it looks like when it's smashed up.
All right, so we're just going to lay it in a towel. We're going to put the face down. And would you like to give it a whack? Here, just hit the middle of the towel, the plate. And again. There we go. I think
It's kind of scary when it happens.
All right.
Okay, and now we've got these
Smaller
bigger
pieces.
chunks.
Yeah,
We need these much smaller than this to use in a mosaic, right?
absolutely.
Okay.
And that's where your other tool's going to come in, your
This
wheel
tool?
cutter. And you can actually just snip off pieces.
There it goes.
Yeah. And we will have some big pieces.
Oh, it would be neat to save most of this as one, so there's like in the middle of your mosaic kind of a hidden picture. Because
Exactly.
we'll make a mosaic into something else, but then this little rooster would disappear.
I like it.
Okay. So when you're making kind of these freeform mosaics, what is the best thing to use or to mount them on?
Well, you want to use something thick or with a good solid base. Some of the pictures that we have over here that you've picked up, again, Happy did hers on this glass, which is great because you can just reuse this and mount it inside of this frame.
That's easy enough. I've seen a lot of times people mosaic the frame
Right.
and then put a picture in, but I love the idea of it, the mosaic being.
Right, and you could even take the inside of this out and put a mirror and just cut it for that area.
yes.
Right.
And then I've got this.
Forms, you can easily, this is a fun, easy project for any age, that they can just cut these little pieces out and form them along the sides of the form and just keep going with the pieces that fit.
In the past, I've used pre-mixed grout, but today we are going to grout something using grout that we made ourselves.
Yep, all we needed was water to mix the grout and get it to a peanut butter kind of a frosting almost
Kind of.
consistency.
And how long will this last, this grout? If I cover it, will it last a long time?
It might last overnight, but I would try to blend a little over the amount that you think it will take to cover the project. So you're not wasting a ton of it.
Because you probably
but
will have to throw it away.
you will throw it away eventually.
And we're going to grout something today. This is adorable. Can you tell me what this is?
This is a piece that my daughter did, and all she took is a block of wood and did a drawing of a golf flag with a cloud and a sun on a green, and she fit her pieces of the different color tiles.
Should we get started? Should we
Sure.
put some grout on here? Okay.
I'll put it on here and you can spread it out. How about that?
This is so satisfying. I can't wait to see how this is going to look after.
Right? And we can go way more grout and just wipe off the stuff that we don't need.
Okay. So that is pretty goopy. And now
It
we're
is.
going to, it's really thick on there. So now
It is. Why don't we scrape off the
scrape some
extra?
off.
Like cake-like.
There's a lot of grout on here. Looking good.
All right.
Now what?
Now let's just take a little wipe with the towel and go around the edges and get all the extra off. And now we can start seeing a little bit of the design.
Okay. And so when do I get to really clean it up so I can see everything?
We're gonna want it to dry and let that grout get solid a little bit before we start really cleaning and getting the tiles all nice and shiny.
Yes. Well, I am hooked. I'm officially hooked. My anchor project got me started, and I cannot wait to get going on another project. In fact, that looks really tempting to me. So I might grab it and get started on another mosaic.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you for all your help.
Thank you, Happy. And you can actually just snip off pieces.
Really?
Yeah.
This thing is
Not so much?
not what the, oh, I did it.
All right, there you go.